And we're back with another edition of the Cosmic Crossfire. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. Thanks again for sticking around and listening to us here on the show. And, well, it wouldn't be a Cosmic Crossfire without the man, the myth, the legend from Rob McCallum Films. You got to check out all of his work and all the great things he's doing on robmccallumfilms.com. And also, as well, his latest venture, Backed or Busted Crowdfunding. You can go ahead and type that up on Facebook, and it comes right up. You can check out all the great projects he's, going
backing
over.
Or busting. The projects I'm backing or busting.
There you go. Well, you break it down in detail with like a fine-tooth comb, like 20 minutes, half an hour, where you actually break down these great projects. But he is here again. You want to check out all of his great stuff today, it's Rob McCallum. What's going on, man?
Not much. Good to be back. And thanks for the plug on Backed or Busted. It's going incredibly well. And as a result of that, not only have I seen an uptick in consultation requests and people reaching out to know a little bit more about crowdfunding, but we are finally mechanizing, at least I am, not much of a we situation. I'm finally mechanizing my first ever live seminar for crowdfunding. So I'm going to be looking to do that probably late March, early April on a one-day kind of workshop intensive course in my hometown of London, Ontario. I'm going to sit there and basically talk to a bunch of interested people who want to know a little bit more about crowdfunding and basically showcase the backed or busted method and what works, what doesn't work, what you can do to up your odds to make your dream project truly amazing and come to fruition.
Well, that sounds awesome indeed. And if they want to find out more about this seminar, where do they need to go?
They just need to go over to facebook.com/backed or busted crowdfunding, like you said. And in Facebook, just type backed or busted crowdfunding, and you'll be taken to our page. Give it a like, and when we start to create the event, you'll see exactly what's going on there.
Fair enough indeed. Will there be any Nintendo Quest stories?
There might be. I mean, it's always nice for me to break down the campaigns I've done and showcase what worked and what didn't work in terms of crowdfunding, rather than maybe make an example out of other people. And it's one thing that I might do on an upcoming episode of Backed or Busted is take a look at one of my previous examples of what worked and what didn't work in the pitfalls. And believe me, Nintendo Quest in particular, the second campaign we did, both were successful, but the second one was really well received. We raised over $40,000. We were only looking for $1,000 to get going, but there was a lot of pitfalls in that. And there are still a lot of headaches that are ongoing as a result of the promises we made with that campaign. So lots to learn in that regard and lots to talk about too.
Well, that's awesome indeed. And, you've got an aspiring director from it. Not only did you get the chance to direct an outstanding documentary, but hey, Jay Bartlett, you're a star. He's actually went off into his own direction with Star Wars Echo 3 and saw those great pictures of him directing and getting everybody going. Obviously he took some steps from you.
Well, Jay knows what he's doing and he likes to have fun, and he's really had a chance to be creative and not have to worry about my looming shadow suggesting or telling him what to do when it comes to Echo 3, at least not right now anyways. And so he's enjoying himself, and it's good to see him get a chance to be creative without the shackles of something where you have to partner up. It's always thrilling when you get to be the driving force, and he's having a lot of fun recreating some shoots and doing some promo artwork for his cosplay group.
The shadow of Rob McCallum.
There you go. Everybody knows the dark despair shadow of Rob McCallum.
Exactly indeed. Well, we've got a lot of great things to talk about in pop culture. So pray tell, Rob, what's on your mind when it comes to the world of pop culture?
Well, there was 4 items that caught my attention this week that were relatively new that I thought, it begs some discussion to see what we think out there and to hear what our listeners think. What we're 50,000 strong a week now, aren't we, Gerald? Or we're pushing, almost 100 in some weeks, depending on the way the schedule falls?
It is a large audience. We just truly appreciate it. We're on so many radio networks now and also many downloading options. We just truly appreciate anybody listening to us. But it's great for any numbers, 1 or whatever it is that we get. We just truly appreciate
I like the big numbers. I want more than 1 because that 1 is probably just you or I listening. So let's make sure we get the thousands of earlobes listening in and tuning in. We'll take them, every single pair.
I will tell you, and I thank everybody out there for listening. We did get over 260,000 listeners in 2017 on the Podcast Radio Network. So we'll start with that from there.
That's a good number to start with. I like it. We're going to aim for 500,000 this year. I like it. First item up for discussion are the Oscars. Now, this is the hot buzz story of the week, of course, because there are new rules in place for handing out the envelopes. Everybody remembers the debacle of, was it Moonlight and La La Land last year, where the wrong Best Picture winner was announced. And oh my goodness, the film industry has barely recovered since. So now the Academy has decided that they're going to include a third person as part of the envelope handing off team. They're going to be in the sound booth. And the two people that are backstage that are handing out the envelope to the presenters, plus the third person, are all going to be brand new. There's no returning envelope handlers from last year. Thank goodness that none of these people are back to destroy our lives with these golden statues to honor everybody. All three are going to be at the practices and all the dry run through so that they can really hone their craft. And really, some of them are going to go as far as memorizing the winners so that there's no possible issues with this catastrophe happening again that wiped out and destroyed egos everywhere in Hollywood.
Well, I'll say this. You worked in the film industry. I worked in the film industry. We know how Hollywood overreacts to simply just everything.
No, this is not an overreaction. This must be done. I'm surprised that it took this long to announce. I'm outraged these rules weren't in place before. What is going on? If the Golden Globes can get it right, why are the Academy Awards, the Oscars, not able to make this happen in a standardized way? This is repugnant.
I can sense just a little hint of sarcasm there in your voice, but okay, I'll play off with you on that. Well, it was a tragedy, and it's a travesty or anything else you want to apply to it, that what happened just seemed like a simple mistake gone wrong. But we've seen that before with, Steve Harvey. He was able to survive from it, and I think the Academy and the law firm that holds that in place as far as the secret, they're trying to take extra steps. That's great to see, but my gosh, like I said earlier, Hollywood just has a tendency to overblow stuff. Hey, they blew it on a name. Everybody does it. It's human. What are you going to do? But it's nice to see that they're taking extra steps. Although, pay me. I'll sit in the sound booth for 3 hours. That would be cool.
Gerald,
by me.
do you have the training? Do you have the dedication, the diligence to go the distance, to completely zero in with 150,000% focus to hand an envelope to somebody? Because heaven forbid a mistake happens on live television.
And the winner is Blade Runner 2049.
I mean,
get out. It was get out.
You don't say the winner is. You've already lost the job. You don't say the winner is. It's the Oscar goes to. What is wrong with you? You're the reason the industry is failing, Gerald. What is wrong?
I'm sorry. It's just old habits died hard. But
there you go.
Yeah.
Have I made my point about how ridiculous this is yet?
You have indeed. Yes, you have indeed. But, this is, like I said, it's Hollywood. They overreact over everything.
All right, moving on. There's lots of news coming out of Sundance, lots of memorable performances, lots of cool indie buzz films. Of course, we already know that 75% of these films, most people won't see. It's just fun to read about for the headlines, for the people that are in the industry. And the other 25% that are highly touted, maybe 5% will make it to somebody's Netflix account to check it out. And despite some possible award winners down the road for these, I got to ask the question, how important is this festival and festivals now in general, especially now that we're living in a streaming service kind of culture and community? Sundance used to be kind of the talk of the town. It used to be as important as the Academy Awards and the Golden Globes, like sandwiched straight in the middle there. It used to be a barometer for that kind of stuff. But I feel because we're getting so many new programs and so much original content from Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, that the newness, which made Sundance the kind of undiscovered gems of the industry, has been completely wiped away and polished off because we're getting enough critical, groundbreaking material from these streaming services. And I can only expect that to continue as CBS continues to fatten their offerings, as Hulu continues to expand, Amazon, Apple, and of course, Disney.
Well, I'll tell you what, it starts off with this. Remember the old days when it used to be Sundance and Cannes as the major film festivals, and pretty much everybody just focused in on those outside of the award shows? Now it seems like, A, there's like 50,000 award shows. B, there's now like 50,000 film festivals that just create a glut as far as that's concerned, and kind of dilute the fact that there's just many more opportunities for all these filmmakers to get their work out there. And then, like you said, there's now so many other streaming options, and also like cons too. San Diego Comic-Con, obviously we still treat that as the favorite among Comic-Cons, but they're even diluted with so many Comic-Cons taking place all over the globe. But I will say this in regards to Sundance, you're right. There is a lessening of importance for the actual festival itself, because of the fact that there are so many options for independent filmmakers to produce their work and have it up already and make it not eligible for the Sundance Film Festival. So I agree with you, because the fact there's now so many hundreds of cable, satellite, and downloading and streaming options that they could go ahead and already produce their work on, that may be more cost effective. And I cannot blame any filmmaker for doing that.
It's just a completely changed landscape with the amount of ways that a filmmaker can have their material seen by millions of people around the globe. I think the real question that these festivals like Sundance and Cannes and even TIFF, which would be that third one that I think comes in there, and Tribeca is maybe a fourth kind of A-tier festival, Class A kind of venue for filmmakers, is what can these festivals do to change in this ever-changing climate? How can they become more relevant and really be significant with what's going on? You've really got to ask the questions about what you're trying to do as a festival, why it works, does it work, and what can you do?
I couldn't blame you a bit for feeling that way as an independent filmmaker and having great options out there already. I know even from the time that you first brought Nintendo Quest to the screen, it's like now there's even more options beyond that. And I want to ask you, in hindsight, when you were in the process of marketing and getting ready to start that push for Nintendo Quest, if all these options were available to you, would you have chosen a different route?
It's hard to say. I never thought Nintendo Quest was going to be a festival film. I wanted to go straight to distribution right away.
Or Missing Mom, for that matter.
Well, Missing Mom definitely was a festival first project. But, even after I took it on the festival circuit and won awards and stuff, I really kind of questioned the value of that, and the cost of traveling and submitting to these festivals versus the appeal that I got at the end of the day from it. I don't know that it helped all that much. So it's really, really hard to say that the pros and cons of that. Now, to be fair, I haven't fully explored all the distribution options for that film. We have sent it to sales markets and we have had, incredible responses, but there are some really wonky things that people are saying as well about it. For example, there's a lot of European interest in the film, but the number one thing they say when we take it to Spain, for example, is, I love this film. It's a great film. I can see why it's won so many awards around the globe, but I want the Spanish story. I don't want the Canadian version. I want the kind of native one so that it resonates with our people here. And then you think about that, and you're like, okay, that makes sense, but this is the story. This is not like, you can't remake, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Spanish version, and have it more appeal. You watch the film that's made. So then we take it to Canadian broadcasters and distributors, and they're like, yeah, it's good, but it's not for us. So you really kind of, there's a political agenda thing going on, and all you're trying to do is always increase the value of what's going on.
But if you had that option as far as streaming services and whatnot to pitch to at that point in time, now, mind you, Nintendo Quest is on streaming services today. If you just want to go ahead and check out Amazon and whatnot, but if you had those options as plentiful as you did in the past, would have changed your mind, your approach as far as some of your films in the way you marketed them?
It's hard to say. I mean, I really don't know. I really try to go with what's happening in the moment and make the most of that. More options is always great, but at the same time, more options make it harder to get people to see it because there's so many people that are dedicated to the way that they want to watch and consume content. Does that make sense?
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. Sometimes it may dilute the product and may dilute the actual interest in it, as opposed to trying to what you think you're going to do or what your original intent was to try and reach a larger audience. I can agree with you on that. I definitely can agree with you on that, from that point of view. But it's definitely kind of made a more difficult issue for promoting films, as far as so many different film festivals, so many different Comic Cons, so many different channels and networks that you could potentially market it to, as opposed to the traditional methods from the past. And I guess that is, in a way, it's a good option to have.
Well, like I said, options are always great. But like you said, with the glut of film festivals out there, there's a glut of distribution platforms too. With everything being watered down, it's hard to get the deals that you want to justify the cost of making films. When, you know, a film might cost you $100,000 to make, and if you distribute it on a platform, you might only get like $5 or $6 grand. Now, it doesn't take an economics wizard to realize that that's a bad deal, or not one worth taking, because you're losing 95% of the cost of the film, let alone the time it took to make the film. So it's a hard industry right now to be a part of, and I don't know that it's going to get any easier either.
Yep, I can't agree with you more on that, because but I'm just, it's nice to see that these networks out there and these streaming networks are actually taking an interest in smaller productions, in independent films and independent filmmakers. It's kind of nice to see that they're not always, I know we've discussed in past weeks about big names or former big names taking these projects on these streaming services, but there's also a lot of great options from independent filmmakers now reaching those type of audiences as well. And that in itself, it's a good thing to see.
I agree. Speaking of stuff that audiences are not going to see, news comes out of the Hasbro universe that both Mask and Rom the Space Knight have been dropped from the Hasbro combined universe. This is, of course, the universe that looked to combine Transformers, G.I. Joe, Micronauts, Visionaries, and at one point, Mask, Mobile Armored Strike Command, which is a really cool property, and Rom the Space Knight. Does this matter is the big question. Allegedly, they had worked out 11 films in the writer's room, which comprised of a lot of, I would say, pretty heavy hitters in terms of writers and what they're able to do, heavyweights, if you will. But studio politics continue to be the main issue for this universe coming together, and it's been derailing the progress of everything happening. Does this matter that Mask and Rom the Space Knight are being dropped out of this? Will they have a future outside of this? Were those toys and those brands too small to live on their own? Do we need more toy-based blockbusters in films?
Well, I'll say this. Those two properties are a little bit under the radar as far as from an overall standpoint. I think I would equate it to Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, Marvel and its Marvel Cinematic Universe was really going strong when they decided to greenlight Guardians of the Galaxy, which was not such a well-known property at the time. That, hey, but they have confidence in their product. They had a lot of dollars backed into their product already, and they had a lot of confidence that they could put out any type of project that they could put out with a good storyline attached to it, and it would make it happen as far as for box office. And they were right with Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, coming over to the Hasbro side of it, with the declining numbers of Transformers, with G.I. Joe being right now at I guess pretty much at a quiet point in time, because the last G.I. Joe came out several years ago now, and with declining numbers from Transformers, it would be a risky proposition to bring out and make those same kind of chances with those not so well-known properties. Even if a good story and a good production is attached to it, that's a lot of dollars Hasbro would commit to that may not see a great investment in return.
I 100% agree that these properties, especially Rom the Space Knight, fall really below what people kind of traditionally remember as a great property. Now, I'm an 80s kid, so when I think of 80s toy lines and cartoons that are memorable, you know, I'm thinking He-Man, Thundercats, Transformers, G.I. Joe are like the big four. You know, Ninja Turtles is up there. And then I start thinking about the lower tiers. Once you get out of those top four, top five, Then you get into Mask. Then you get into like Silverhawks, Visionaries, Centurions, Sectars. Those kind of one-off, one-season runs that had some cool concepts that were visually interesting, but didn't necessarily have the staying power to stick around. Now, that said, out of all the lesser shows that exist, I do believe that Mask is the strongest brand, or at least the strongest concept, I guess is the best way to kind of describe it. And for everybody that doesn't know Mask, it is essentially G.I. Joe meets Transformers. The action figures were a little bit smaller than G.I. Joe, but you had characters, heroes, and villains that were fighting each other, much like Joe and Cobra. It was Mask versus Venom, and they would put on a mask on their head, and it would transform their vehicles into different forms, or the vehicles had two different stages in the mask, and the mask that they donned basically helped them control it. So they put on the helmet, and it allowed them to kind of manipulate their vehicles in different ways. So it really combined G.I. Joe and Transformers to the best of the ability. The toys were really expensive when they came out, but they were really cool as well. So,
but people barely remember them, and that's the problem right there in a nutshell, is that you said yourself it was a limited run at best, and I barely, when I was reading,
it's not even a limited run too, Gerald. What's interesting is there, I think, are two seasons of Mask. One where it's a G.I. Joe clone, and the second one where it's Speed Racer. The second season of Mask is all about racing each other in a Speed Racer like setup where it's Mask versus Venom on the racetrack, where their cars transform during the race and stuff. So it's not even kind of like an all-out war kind of deal in the way that G.I. Joe fought Cobra. It became more about racing each other, and that was strange.
Tell me about it. And look what happened to Speed Racer itself when it came to the screen. That bombed. And so
it bombed, but it was a great movie. I don't care what anyone said. The visuals in that film are great. I think it's
I will give you that. The visuals were good. The visuals were good.
Yeah. I thought it was a great film. Wachowskis are either hit or miss, but yes. It's a fun, candy-colored film. It was one of the very first Blu-rays I got, and I'm glad I picked it up to this day.
Well, it is visually a very strong movie. I can't say the same for the story-wise, but yeah.
What I think Hasbro should do in this case is, okay, you know what? Omit them from the shared universe. You know what? Maybe abandon the shared universe idea altogether. We've seen how wrong it can go for some people. Just because you're saying you're going to create this big universe doesn't mean you can get it right. DC Comics. But what you might want to consider doing is, instead of spending $100 million on a Mask standalone film at some point, or investing $10 million to bring Mask to a part of the big screen in another film, why not spend that $10 to $25 million and reboot the show? Because I do think the concept is strong. Put it out there as 26 episodes or 10 episodes like Voltron did via Netflix and DreamWorks. Find a streaming platform that Hasbro can work with. Maybe it is CBS All Access. Give them some kids content or some teen content and put it on there and really reboot it. Make it work. I think that's a great opportunity.
Or at least introduce it as part of the next Transformers or Bumblebee spinoff movie or what have you, just as within that context of the film, and see if it flies, see if it's something that audiences are interested in. Because we've seen before where something gets introduced into a larger prospect, into a larger film project, and it gets noticed, it gets attention, and then thus gets spun off on its own if it actually becomes a successful property in its own right.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Speaking of spin-offs and copycats and other shows that are trying to make a dent in the world in the way that Mask is trying to enter this toy-branded universe or fight for an identity, Laugh-In, a show that came out 50 years ago, had an anniversary on January 22nd. Laugh-In is the precursor to SNL and actually had Lorne Michaels on staff as a writer. There are a lot of people that got their start as comedians on Laugh-In, like Goldie Hawn and Lily Tomlin. It really made me start to think about the landscape of late-night comedy and sketch shows. You know, this was the precursor to SNL. SNL is the institution, which is the word that always gets thrown around because it has been around for so long. We've seen limited success with other shows like Hee Haw and Fridays, Mad TV more recently. But how come SNL is still around and nothing else can really break that stranglehold? What about it works that nobody else can replicate?
And that's the hard part, because there have been several seasons of SNL which make me cringe as far as how substandard or poor. I mean, pretty much someone maybe mid 90s or early 2000s, where there were a collective crew that were just not resonating well with audiences. So but it seems to have its highs and lows, just like every series. And right now, it because they've been able to attach themselves politically. It just seems like it is. I don't want to say it's as strong as ever, because you cannot replicate the brilliance of the '70s project when you had so many great comedians, both male and female, on that show. So it's still a very strong product now. But yeah, it seems to resonate because I think NBC pushes and continues to push it so hard, and I think people get used to and clocked in on just tuning in on every Saturday night. So I believe that is the case, and it's just become like almost like a force of habit, and an institution. And once something becomes like an institution per se, it just seems to be hard for a general audience to turn it off. Now, mind you, I preferred In Living Color at the time it was out. I saw the potential greatness from the Wayans family, Jim Carrey and whatnot. When they were performing, you could just see how entertaining it was going to become. The Tracy Ullman show, also as well Ben Stiller's show. I mean, you could see the promise that those shows and those characters had as well. So, but they were just, I don't think, got the support from the network that that Saturday Night Live has had from NBC at any given point in time, because Saturday Night Live has turned out to become a cornerstone for that network.
I think one of the most important things you hit on is the reason that SNL has been able to stay around so long is their ability to comment with comedy on political storylines that are going on. I think back to the 70s, not so much the 80s and the 90s, and those were much more sketch driven, where those sketches really stand out, and Weekend Update was as good as the sketches. Now it feels like Weekend Update is the leader of that program. I think most people look forward to that in the same way that they really look forward to The Daily Show or The Colbert Report, where it becomes much more about political commentary first and foremost, and then the sketches around that. I think when they started, it was a little bit 50-50, more about the sketches, or the sketches first and foremost with some political commentary on the side. I mean, Chevy Chase really made Weekend Update the staple, right? The thing. And that has been the ongoing segment on that show that has never gone away, which is interesting, right?
Yes, and him playing kind of my namesake as former President Gerald Ford, when he kept falling over and making those pratfalls, which I know led to some unfortunate circumstances for him health-wise later on in life. But those were hilarious moments. And obviously you can, if you're a longtime fan of the series, you can pretty much name off many of the great sketches that have been done over the years. I still miss Mr. Bill every single day. That was just truly just enjoyable to watch, at that time. And it's still, you can find it when it's out there on Vimeo or YouTube. So there's so many different characters that have been portrayed over the years that they hit on, amidst all the others that they don't quite resonate with audiences or stick with them. But there's, again, so many others. And there's been a period of time where they did have great talent, where they were able to spawn those off into movie franchises of their own, or actually movies of their own per se, to some success as well. But Saturday Night Live, I think at this point in time, it's been a roller coaster in the highs and lows, and I'm sure their ratings as well. But at this point in time, like you said, because they've been able to touch on something very political, and because people are more concerned about politics than pretty much at any point in time in the past 100 years, in my opinion, that it has now been able to resonate with audiences. And you're right, Weekend Update, as the precursor to The Daily Show and Stephen Colbert, it just makes it even more important as far as its place in television culture.
What I'm thinking about now, as we're sitting here talking about it and exploring the reasons why this show has done so well, I really think it comes down to, of course, there's a lot of talented on the writing side and the performing side, but I think the thing that works best about the show is the time slot on the day. They have no competition from anywhere. If SNL tried to be on Thursday night at 11:30, I don't think it would last as long. I think it's because it's where they are, and I think that's another reason that you look at networks like HBO, where they put Game of Thrones and Entourage and their other kind of big breakout hits on Sunday night. No competition that you're really up against, so that you can capture more of the audience's time. And
AMC with The Walking Dead for years was the #1 show on television because of the fact that they had their own corner of the television market already in place.
Yeah, and Dexter, is another great example of that. I mean, good shows, people will make time to watch good shows no matter what, especially in the age of DVR and PVR and all that, and downloads and streaming, of course, where you can do it on your own time. But for these live shows, the calendar has really limited options where people are more likely to watch something. Saturday night, 11:30 is not the best time to watch it. So whatever you put on there, if it's halfway decent, you're going to get the audience. And I think Weekend Update in particular is as strong as, the Daily Show and the Colbert Report was in some of their great seasons or their early seasons and always has been. But I don't think Saturday Night Live works if you put it through the week. I think that's where it get canceled. So it makes me wonder, if you put something out against SNL on Saturday, like we saw with Mad TV, can you eventually topple it if you have somebody committed that has the bank account, like an Amazon or a Hulu, or you name the streaming partner? Can you have enough? I mean, this is what I think. Netflix should do live streaming with all their comedians that they have together as a roster, and put something together that comes out 11 o'clock Saturday nights. Can you imagine with their pockets?
Yeah, and that's also good as well. But you're also forgetting one major streaming entity that is now coming strong into the marketplace. YouTube, with its YouTube Live, they're starting to advertise on network televisions and partnering themselves with networks out there. In fact, their relationship with ABC and sharing programs plus showing their own original content on YouTube Live and trying to make itself the next great streaming network. And they could also be an entity for something like this as well.
Yeah, I think YouTube could be a potential player, but I don't think that they'll ever make the dent because of how they came out of the gate and what they're always going to be known for. They're fighting their own brand appeal. YouTube is the Tom Hanks of the internet service. It's the everyman, easy to upload. You watch it on your phone, and you upload cat videos. I think they're going to be fighting so hard to say that they are premium content first and foremost, and not cat videos playing pianos secondary. It's always going to be the inverse relationship. There's a ton of great content on YouTube. I put some of it out there. Just kidding. There's a ton of great content out there. There's stuff that shouldn't be on YouTube.
Don't be modest. Yes, you have.
Not really. I don't use YouTube that much. I never have, and I probably never will. There is a lot of great content out there. There is high quality material that's out there that should be sold and it should be on networks, but people will put it on YouTube for whatever monetization preferences or whatever their distribution choices are. But YouTube will always be first and foremost in people's minds as cat videos and dumb reaction videos or America's Funniest Home videos for the world. That's what YouTube is going to be known as, and you're going to be fighting such a monumental image to change that around. You'd be better off rebranding as a separate service that is tied to it without the word YouTube.
I can't dissuade you from that, and I also can't disagree with you on that because you are fighting an uphill battle. But even if they are able to get even a small share of the marketplace, it is worth their time if you get those subscribers subscribing to your network. And if it comes to ABC and some other entities partnering up with them in a real strong fashion, you never know, because Google has a lot of money itself. I know that you're talking about Amazon become a big player in this late night marketplace, obviously trying to maybe wedge itself in there, or possibly could see that as an option. YouTube could also see that option as well.
I just think if Google's going to do it, they can't do it under the YouTube brand. It's got to be like Google Play or something like that. I think it would be much smarter for them to separate than try to branch off from something that's already ingrained in people's minds. Just what I think, but it's even hard for me to think about that with the first topic that we discussed, the Oscar envelope conundrum, envelope gate, whatever you want to call it. it's still bothering me from the top of the show. I really hope that there's not a conundrum. I don't want the Oscars to turn into NASCAR, where essentially we're watching for the catastrophes to happen. I don't want that to happen to the Academy Awards.
You
but that'll
too,
do
right?
it for
you go to NASCAR events for that too?
That's exactly all I go for. That's
Pretty
what matters most. Yes.
Because people out there, when people can't help but watch, what happened if a car accident happened, and is anybody hurt, or what's the damage out there? People always stop and look at a car wreck. So I guess this goes, without saying. So
that's it. And that'll do it for another episode.
Oh, wait.
What?
There's actually one question I was hoping you were bringing up. And you didn't mention it as a pop culture fan.
Well, I never know what you and Josh got going on, right? So I've really got to pick the niche topics.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a niche topic, and it's something that goes back to our earlier gaming days. What do you think about a possible Duke Nukem movie with John Cena possibly being the headline star?
Well, many moons ago, in a film called The Mummy Returns, The Scorpion King, people thought it was ridiculous that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, a wrestler, was going to appear on the big screen. And then he appeared in a movie called Doom. And I feel like this is of a parallel kind of path for John Cena, where he's appearing in a game that's best known as a first-person shooter with a cult following. Regardless of John Cena, I don't have high hopes for a Duke Nukem film. You could put anybody in that spot, and you could put The Rock in that spot now that he's become an international megastar, and best known maybe as an actor more than a wrestler at this point. I think that the film probably won't do well, but I don't think you should count John Cena out. I've seen some of his acting performances. They're not fantastic. He doesn't have the charm and charisma that The Rock does, who can make you believe he can swallow an entire building with one bite and then make you laugh at a punchline the next one. But I think he could be an action star in a society where we really don't have the machismo, testosterone-fueled action movies like we once had. I think the better career path for John Cena is to put him in a film like Expendables and kind of leverage off those other stars of that ilk, and then start to break off into maybe smart movies that don't have the branding tied to it that Duke Nukem has. Like, find a good John Wick-like action film for John Cena, where he doesn't have to talk a lot, but he can really kick some ass.
Well, I'll say this. Many, many years ago, when the Scorpion King came out, and then also coming off the horrible CGI of The Mummy Returns, with him playing, morphed into that half scorpion type deal with, if everybody's seen that out there, but also the Scorpion King movie itself. I said at that time, for Dwayne Johnson to actually become that next big breakout star, he would have to get as comfortable on a film screen as he does when he's doing his promos in a pro wrestling ring. And until he got to that point, he was never going to find any real long sustaining success in that fashion. Well, look at 15 years later, he is now at that point where he looks and feels very comfortable that he can go in almost like a second skin now, that he can go in front of the film cameras and go ahead and be naturally well received, and also feel like he's actually can be a great actor on screen. John Cena, to me, hasn't done that yet. He hasn't made that transition. He does not still look 100% comfortable, although he's had a couple decent performances in Trainwreck, but just to name one. But there's still, I think, a period where he has to transition himself away more from the ring and basically commit to himself as an actor, and can also get more comfortable behind a film camera instead of in the ring looking at the strong side of the television camera and the crowd that's out there. But be that as it may, him right now fitting into a Duke Nukem type fold, if you're going to shoot Duke Nukem, if you're going to make a Duke Duke Nukem movie. If you're going to make a Duke Nukem movie, you have to film it like you are filming a Deadpool movie, with the NSFW language and the whole 9 yards. You have to treat it as an R-rated film, in my opinion. And I don't think John Cena, with his audience that he still clamors to when he's in the wrestling ring, I really don't see him being able to do that type of performance at this point in time. I think there are other candidates out there that could possibly fill that role a lot better. But you're right. If you give it a large budget, I don't think a Duke Nukem movie would be very good for box office returns.
I just think that there's more pitfalls than potential trophies in that one specifically. Oh, should we officially start the countdown to see how long the streak goes, by the way, until we actually get a first image, let alone a trailer from Solo, a Star Wars story?
Well, you know what?
4 months to go, folks.
I've said it before in episodes in November, December, and January that
I think we all thought we were going to see something with The Last Jedi.
Well, so did I. But as soon as that went awry, I feel strongly, and I don't have the Force with me, I'm sorry, that it is going to get delayed. It's going to get delayed to December, or you possibly never even see the light of day. Now, mind you, I was kind of, backtracking on that when Deadpool 2 got moved up a week by Fox, because at this point in time, Fox is still handling its studio as if it's going to stay their own until the actual merger takes place. But yeah, they actually moved it a week up because they were concerned about the Solo movie on Memorial Day weekend. Well, lo and behold, we still haven't seen a trailer, and I'm still not convinced that 100% that it's going to be actually something that comes to fruition on that date. I know they sent out a synopsis a few days ago of the movie, but that does nothing for me. I need to see a trailer with a firm release date, and I don't think we're going to get it. But I hope I'm proven wrong. I have egg on my face, and I hope that it does come out Memorial Day weekend.
Well, I'm just looking for the most logical time and place that a trailer might get shown or announced, and I'm thinking, is it going to be D23 in March, where it's 2 months before, and so that there isn't a huge buildup because they're worried about the backlash from The Last Jedi and how it divided fans, so they're going to make the burn really short this time instead of long. Have you signed the petition, by the way, to get Last Jedi out of the canon yet?
No.
Oh, my goodness. You're one of those Oscar mishandling envelope carriers. Again,
back with a facetious tone. But, hey, I'd like to have that kind of backlash and have a film still do $1.3 billion worldwide at the box office without even doing well at all in the Chinese market. So, there
are worse fates.
There are worse fates. So.
All right. Well, that's all I've got to talk about this week. I look forward to returning next week, potentially. We never know. The baby is on the way at some point. So I may be here, I may not be here, but if I am, you can expect the most niche, facetious, sarcastic discussions on the corners of the pop culture cosmos, if you will, the Cosmic Crossfire. That's what we do.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rob, if you get a chance to come on in an upcoming episode, first of all, my best to you and the family in regards to, the newcomer that hopefully will be coming happy and healthy, but also as well, if you're able to jump on in one of our future episodes, I really want to break down some of your thoughts on the Oscar nominees leading into, obviously, Oscars. I know Josh and I are going to cover it as well at some point in time, but I'd like to hear from a directorial standpoint what your thoughts are on some of the candidates, but we'll save that off for another day. But if you have any questions for Rob and the Cosmic Crossfire, or for us as well at Pop Culture Cosmos, just feel free to give us a shout out, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Rob McCallum Films, Backed or Busted Crowdfunding, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. And if somebody has a project they want you to look at as far as Backed or Busted Crowdfunding, what's the email again?
It's crowdfundingspectacular99@gmail.com. That's crowdfundingspectacular99@gmail.com, all one word. But hey, you can also hit me up on Twitter @RobMcZob, or of course through our Facebook page, facebook.com/BackedOrBustedCrowdfunding.
All right. Sounds great indeed. Rob, As always, it's a pleasure having you on the show, and look forward to having you on soon again with the Pop Culture Cosmos, and of course, right here in the midst of the Cosmic Crossfire.